Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans Season 2, an anime that is so monumentally frustrating and disappointing that it made me write my first anime review and is now making me create my first video ever. Before I talk more about Season 2, I want to briefly mention Season 1. I loved the first season of the show. Objectively speaking, it is probably more of a 7 to 8, but personally, it is a 9 for me. It's one of those shows that hooked me right from the start and kept me glued the entire time. I binged all 24 episodes in probably 3 days. It had a cohesive story with a clear end goal for the colorful cast of characters. It had a great introduction on Mars of the boys of Takandan and their goal of delivering Kudelia to Earth. An entertaining journey in the middle of the Morgan with Teiwans to slowly but surely make their journey to Earth while overcoming obstacles thrown at them. Lastly, a satisfying ending of them achieving said goal and winning the prestige that they so deserved. On another note, I personally believe that animation, music, or art are secondary to characters and story. In Season 2, they're fine here, so I'm not going to talk more about them. Characters and story are what makes me invested in the show, so that's what I want to discuss. Spoilers ahead. Season 2, in comparison, feels completely disjointed with so many side plots that end up going nowhere, and everything that happens becomes so completely predictable. I read this one Reddit comment that says that the second season feels like watching a show about a serial killer killing all my favorite people, and I know that it's going to happen, but I can't help but keep watching anyway, hoping that it's not going to happen because I care about these characters. It ultimately just feels like the killer is the writers, and that they keep having cheap deaths and tragedy for the sake of tragedy just to make me feel bad. I don't mind the good guys dying. On the contrary, I actually enjoy watching heroes lose to villains because of their naivete, which is why I just cannot stand shows like Fairy Tail or Boku no Hero. But this show doesn't do it in a believable or convincing way. It feels like the writers just suddenly in Season 2 wants the protagonist to lose, so they bend over backwards to achieve that. It's the first time I've seen antagonists have so much plot armor at every single turn, while the protagonists get killed off in all the most preventable ways. Starting with Julieta, she's a normal human pilot, but is somehow going toe-to-toe with Mikazuki despite it being established that the Barbatos and the AV system is supposed to be overwhelmingly superior in close-quarter combat that not even Ain or Galio could compete against. But no, Mika just can't seem to get the upper hand against Julieta, who, again, is just some normal human. Even if eventually Julieta gets impaled or like half crushed in the fight, she just still somehow survives despite being left to die in space. And the only reason she gets rescued is because Galio just passes by her on a whim and picks her up. Ugh, and Eok, oh my god. Despite being one of the biggest idiots in probably all of anime, he escapes death like 5 times somehow, just by sheer luck and writing, I guess. First time, the Mita nearly shadows the window of his bridge, but doesn't work. Second, he somehow limps away in a mangled mobile suit from the plumas and the mobile armor, despite being slower, by the way. He just, I guess, gets away. Next, he shoots the mobile armor like 3 times to reverse Deus Ex Machina to like screw over the protagonist because, you know, the writers fuck the protagonist, fuck the good guys. Lastly, he suicide charges McGillis and is surely going to die? No. He's just conveniently not killed despite McGillis having every ample opportunity to do so. In the end, he does die to Akihiro, but it just doesn't matter anymore. It just ends up feeling unsatisfying with me saying, oh, finally he's dead. Speaking of Galio and Ain, they somehow survive despite being stabbed straight through the cockpit back in Season 1, if I'm remembering correctly. I mean, even if they weren't killed, like, right there, they were still in Arbrow territory, which is under control of Takandan, kind of, because Takandan won the fight, and they are in collaboration with Chairman Makanai now, so how was Galio and Ain even rescued in the first place? Anyway, instead of feeling like I can't believe the bad guys are doing this and that. To me, it just feels like I can't believe the writers are doing this to make the good guys lose, to make me feel bad. Because this show, without a doubt, has the most blatantly telegraphed deaths I have ever seen in anime. Every single time you see any character development, any moments that expand their personality or explore their backstory, they are just inevitably killed off. Biscuit's death in season 1 was pretty obviously going to happen, but I can look past that because that's just the first time, and I was rooting for him to live. But in season 2, character deaths just feels formulaic. It feels like the writers are trying to play with my emotions. Because when I see character development in season 2, I just think, not this again. I guess they're gonna die. Every time it's, you take a character, you make them likable, you give them some backstory, and then they get killed off in the next, or, maybe a little 2 or 3 episodes later. Aston, which is my favorite character, by the way, a rarely seen character suddenly getting screen time and developing a relationship with Takaki, surely he's gonna die. Nazi and Amida flashbacks, they are going to die. Shino and Yamagi exploring their relationship, Shino saying, I'm not going to die, he's 100% dead. Oh, and by the way, he misses his last shot to kill Elion because, sucks to be them. Even though Elion completely underestimates him, and the show has shown in the past that hubris leads to death, but I guess not this season because bad guys have plot armor. Oh yeah, also Hush dies because he had a backstory. On that note, the new recruits in season 2, like Hush, just really goes nowhere. Why introduce all these new characters when you could do so much more with the old characters like Ride or Eugene and give them more characterization? Oh wait, I know. It's because they would be dead if they had any backstory at all. I know some people defend this story by saying it's realistic and the underdog loses more often than not, but it's just not done in a believable or satisfying way. That's why there are so few stories where the bad guys ultimately win. We follow the protagonist, and that's who we root for by default. For the bad guys to win, they need to have compelling characters and convincing actions, kind of like Thanos in Infinity War. Rusto Elion, on the other hand, is just a mustache-twirling villain with zero, and I really mean zero backstory or motivation. Not to mention things that just keep going his way with no setup. Why did Elion have all the Dainslift even though they are stored on Earth, and that's McGillis' sphere of control? How did he smuggle Dainslift into McGillis' rank with no one noticing? If McGillis did have Dainslift, then why did no one use it? Also, why did McGillis not pursue the Order of the 7 Stars? He could have secured the strongest seat of the 7 Stars, but it's just conveniently never brought up again. Takanda also could have used defeating a mobile armor to gain more fame and become the heroes of Gjallarhorn, really, but nope, it's just never mentioned. On the contrary, they're later painted to be villains, and everyone instantly believes them, even though before they were thought of as heroes alongside Kudelia. Also, just a little bit tangent. Dainslift, they look like slow-ass harpoons. There's no way they should be pinpoint accurate over a vast firing distance. On Mars, we can see them firing these harpoons from orbit and hitting a tiny fucking speck, which is Mika and Aki in their mobile suits, but whatever. That's just a nitpick. Now, I want to talk about Takanda and Orga. It feels like the writers just want him to be an idiot and to keep chasing a carrot on the stick for no good reason. If they want him to be a flawed protagonist that ruins Takanda for his own personal greed, then it's not done well at all. Why is he just randomly hell-bent on taking the shortest and riskiest route to success? In the past, he often took risky options for Takanda because their backs were against the wall. He also had internal struggles between success for Takanda and the cost to make it happen. But this season, he just doesn't think about consequences and just keeps pushing them even though they already have everything they could ever want. They are already incredibly famous and was given control of the largest half-metal mine on Mars, which, by the way, was never mentioned again, so they already had the fame and the money. But Aston and others' death leading to the closure of the Earth branch doesn't do anything to dissuade Orga. destroying the Dawn Horizon Corp. Doesn't matter. They want more. And he just gets so easily swayed by McGillis' honeyed words to be kings of Mars, even though they pretty much already were. They were heroes, and they were treated as such by many people. It's hard to talk about Orga without mentioning Mika. It feels like Season 2 has completely destroyed what little nuance there is to his character towards the end. They just keep flashing back to the same stupid scene of Orga saving Mika during their childhood, but it's never even made clear what actually happened and what drives Mika to think this way. Yeah, Mika is a stoic character, but I wouldn't say he's an emotionless blank slate like some others have said. In Season 1, we see him get angry when Galio and McGillis almost hit Cookie and Cracker with a car, and we saw him get angry on Carta when she kills Biscuit, but in Season 2, he has zero reaction to McGillis killing Aston or Shino, among many other deaths. Granted, he doesn't really know these people as well, but he doesn't even react to Orga's death either. Instead, we just keep having these same stupid flashbacks of him and Orga as a child, and he just keeps repeating the same line of following Orga and his life being Orga's, even though it's just kind of meaningless because we don't know anything about them. We have seen Mika have an interest in gardening and perhaps having a peaceful life as a farmer one day, but after being paralyzed on his right side, this path becomes closed off to him as he's bound to Barbatos to be able to move freely. They could have explored this more and about Mika's motivations. Perhaps he's not really following Orga's instructions for a better future. Maybe he just wants to kill, and he's just using that as an excuse. After Orga's death, he could have realized that a life in battle is all he's known and is all he ever will know, so that's all he will do from now on, with a goal of dying in battle. But his character really just goes nowhere, and he wasn't anything. Like, Mika was such a cool character, but they just never did anything with him. There was so much more they could have done with him. It feels like the writers want to portray Takandan's destruction as a result of Orga's overambition and greed, but no one in the show ever remarks on it. If anything, he dies a hero's death saving Ride, and they just keep following his words of keep moving forward, even though it's just meaningless and not really made clear. He did seem to have a last-minute change of heart and work to make sure the last handful of Takana members survive, but the ending, it feels too good to be true, and it feels like the writers backpedaled from having an actual dark ending of having the bad guys win. Rusto Elion had overwhelmingly crushed all opposition, but for some unexplained reasons ended up making Earth a democracy and giving autonomy to other planets and systems. Even though in the past we have seen him crush rebels from the Dork colonies, which would suggest that he wants to rule an iron grip. If Kudelia just ends up being the chairperson of Mars Union despite losing war for independence, and many surviving members of Takandan are working for her, then wouldn't they just be the king of Mars in the end? But couldn't they have avoided all this and just done nothing and still arrived to this point? Why would they even work with McGillis in the first place? McMurdo seemed to have connections to make deal with Elion, so Takandan could have eventually just controlled Mars with Kudelia under Tevaz. In the end, it makes the entire 50-episode journey completely unsatisfying with a very unconvincing ending. So that's my rant/review. I just really wanted to get that off my chest because I just could not believe Season 2 went that direction. I can still barely get over what happened. Well, anyway, thanks for watching.